Hey everybody, and welcome to a Teacher's Wonderland YouTube channel. My name is Ronnie, and I'm here with you, and this is Quinn. She's gonna pop in and out. It's okay. It's what we do as parents. Say hi, Quinn. No. Okay. Anyways, make sure you hit that like button and you hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so that you can be notified every time that we release a new video, which is almost every Tuesday and Thursday at this point. I'm so excited about today's video. Okay, the reason why I'm obsessed with this is because I love, like we're talking like full invested in this Greek mythology. And if you are not a fan of Greek mythology, I would just say scroll on by. Like, really, it's not something that you're going to want to hear then. But if you love Greek mythology and you want to introduce it to your students and you want ideas for your students, this is the video for you. We're talking about all of it. We're going to talk about the picture books. We're going to talk about the chapter books. We're going to talk about the mythology in a way that you can bring this to your students and you are going to be like mind blown, and your students will be mind blown as well. Okay. We all know, of course, now as I'm recording, the lawnmower is right out front. Of course. We all know the awesome stories and chapter books called Percy Jackson. And if you don't know Percy Jackson, they are a series by Rick Riordan, and they are amazing. And if I ever meet Rick Riordan, and if you ever watch this Rick Riordan, which I doubt you will, but if I ever meet you, I will probably cry. Okay? There have been two authors ever that I have been so invested that I have to like meet them. One of them was Rick Riordan, and the second one is Brandon Mull. And this will be a little side story for you. Right before COVID happened, we met an author, and I was like, yeah, he's amazing, and I really liked him, and I was talking to him, and he came into my classroom to talk to my kids. And God, I'll never forget this. The guy said, and he's the guy that wrote Janitor's series. So he goes, I go, what's your favorite book? And he was like, my favorite book is probably Fable Haven by Brandon Mull. I was like, oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite books. He was like, I know him. I was like, no, you don't. He's like, no, seriously. I spent Christmas with him. I was like, oh my gosh, seriously? The guy called Brandon Mull on the phone right then and there. And I was like, I love you. And I bawled in front of my kids, like boohoo crying, saying, thank you for writing such a fantastic series. So I'm pretty sure I would do the exact same thing if I ever met Rick Riordan. I did not do that when I met Brad Meltzer. He's a local, like, South Florida person. But I'm actually going to see him in a couple weeks, and I'm, again, like, giddy. It is what it is. Anyways, let's get talking about Rick Riordan. Rick Riordan wrote this entire series called Percy Jackson. It's 5 books, and it goes through how this kid is a half-blood or a demigod. Demigod? Is that right? He's half god, half human. Okay? It's pretty cool ideas. The ideas in this book are fantastic. I've actually read this book every single year while I was in the classroom. I read this book to my students, and I felt like it opened so many doors for my students, especially my kids that weren't necessarily completely into reading yet. It definitely opened the world for them. And I loved that this book just encouraged them to think outside the box and to look at the world just a little bit differently. And then, of course, while I was doing that, I also taught them where the Greek mythology came from. But now I actually have a book, this guy, that would have been perfect with this lesson. But unfortunately, I didn't find this till recently. But it's amazing. And we're going to go through this one, so don't worry. Percy Jackson not only finishes off with 5 books, he ends up kind of taking the Roman mythology and adding it into the Greek mythology. So really, it's 2 5-book series adding it together. So really it's 10 books that I kind of like say it's all part of, because Percy is in these other books. The other part that I will tell you, and it's just me. It's 100% me, okay? I have this thing where I cannot finish series of a book, of a TV show, of anything. And once I found out that Rick Riordan, his 10th book of the Roman Gods series, was going to be the last one of the Percy Jackson, I never finished. So I didn't actually read number 10. So I read like the Cliff Notes version of it just so I knew it would happen, but I never actually read it because I didn't want to see it end. So if you were to ever like, hey, this is what happened in book 10, I'd be like, cool. Yeah, I never read it. Sorry, it's just how it is. Can I have that? Okay. Rick Riordan ended up writing more books about the Greek mythology. Nope, sorry. Egyptian mythology, which I think was like my first view into Egyptian mythology, and that was really cool. And I think right now there's Norse mythology, which would be Thor. So if your students are ever questioning, talking about mythology, I would highly recommend that you recommend the Percy Jackson series to them. You don't need to start with the Norse. I would say start with Percy Jackson. There's a lot of turbulence right now in the education world, so just make sure you're not getting into trouble. I would say start with Percy, and then you could go from there. Stop it. Okay, let's talk about this book. Oh, and if you actually want the questions done for you, I do have them in my TPT store, so you can grab them there. But that's not why I did this video. But I'm just telling you in case you don't want to do the questions. Okay, let's talk about this book. I use this book because my kids kind of can't, by the time that they get to like 4th and 5th grade, yeah, they can tell you fact, they can tell you an opinion. Cool. But let's do a myth. Okay? And then let's take the fact from the myth, or let's find the fact in the myth. Right? Is that the right way to say it? Right? Yeah. Let's find the fact that came from the myth. That's in the myth. Whatever. Okay, you'll see in a second. So I loved using this book. Mainly because it has a lot of text in it, and once we were done with it, I like to let my kids read it. So I actually just put it out, and my kids can read it because they get really invested in it, and they really want to know more about the gods, the goddesses, and all that stuff. So I think it's just kind of cool. So if you have this book, here's where I'm going to tell you to start with page number 6. And the first thing, let's talk about earthquakes. Earthquakes. She even said it. Earthquakes, we know at current is that it is 2 fault lines shifting, right? Or I guess crashing, shifting, right? However, at the time, people didn't know what it was. So here's what they said. They said that the myth was that the earth shook every time Poseidon, the god of the sea, crashed his trident to the ground. Kind of awesome. So really what's happening? Okay, we're having an earthquake. Volcanic eruption. And this is actually big. So wait, I'm going to pause on this one. We're going to go back to this one because I think focusing on this would be really good. Okay, let's do thunderstorms. Thunderstorms. Okay, we know as scientists that thunderstorms come because we have a certain amount of moisture in the air. We also have a lot of particles that are crashing together to make the lightning, which then also makes the sound of the thunder. However, they couldn't explain how lightning and thunder started and rain. They couldn't explain it. They didn't know where it came from. So they had to make something up for it. So the myth that they created for this was thunderstorms. And the thunderstorms was that an angry Zeus, the god of lightning, would hurl lightning bolts, thunder, and rain down on Earth. And then it used to be that they would say, what did we do? What did we do that was wrong? And that's kind of where that came from. It's kind of awesome, isn't it? Of course, the people now are distracting the dog. Okay, I'm trying to find Hephaestus. I love him. He's like one of my favorites. Okay. So let's talk about volcanic eruption. So we know volcanoes. We know that in Earth's core, we have magma. And that it's always boiling. And then if we have an earthquake, we might have some shifting of that. And now the magma is going to try to escape. However, a lot of times they didn't know why this was happening. They had no idea why a volcano was actually happening. Which, I mean, I guess it makes sense, right? When you think about it. I'm so sorry. She's horrible. So sorry. Penny! Sorry. I guess that's what you get for recording at home. Right? So now we know that there's complex things that are going on with this. However, back in the day, they had no idea. Okay? I'm going to read you exactly what it says, okay? The story goes that Hephaestus' hangout was located beneath a volcano, which was a fitting place for the fire god. Fire, F-I-R-E. In fact, here's a little side note for you. In Roman mythology, which really is stolen from Greek, the Roman mythology, they named Hephaestus Vulcan. Vulcan, right? Not like Vulcan, like the guys with the big ears, right? Not those guys, okay? We're talking about like Vulcan. And this is actually where we get the word volcano from. I know, it's so cool. I know. Every time that Vulcan, technically, created something new in his fiery workshop, he'd set off another volcano. However, today, Hephaestus is still associated with Mount Etna on the island of Sicily in Italy. Europe's highest active volcano at 10,922 feet, and it's given how hard Hephaestus' work is. It's no surprise that there is activity still almost daily on Mount Etna. Isn't that crazy cool? Like, I thought that was cool. Okay, and the last one I'm going to show you guys today, I always thought it was interesting. And remember, like a lot of these gods, and here's your cross-curricular connection. A lot of the Greek gods, when they turn into Roman gods, they have new words. Well, the Romans are the ones that discovered the planets. Therefore, the Romans are the ones that named the planets. For example, the god of war, his name is Ares in Greek, but when you move him over into Roman mythology, his name is Mars. Therefore, who did we name the planet Mars for? Mars or Ares, whichever way you want to go. See, there he is. I know. It's really cool. Okay, so the last one that I'm actually going to go over with you guys is going... Oh, sorry, we're shaking. The baby's playing with something. The last one we're going to go over is going to be Pandora. I'm sure you've heard of Pandora because everyone has like that saying of, don't open Pandora's box. Right? I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have heard of this. Now, of course, I can't even find it. I had it. Apollo. Please hold. And some of them I would definitely tell you are not appropriate for kids, like Dionysus. I probably wouldn't go that way just because he's the god of wine. So, okay, so Pandora. Pandora was, it was said that she was a very curious woman. And because she was so curious, Zeus gave her a box and said, do not open. Well, curiosity killed the cat, right? So what ends up happening is Pandora is brought down to Earth with Hermes. And when she's down here, she is... Penelope! She is told, do not open this box, do not look inside, because there could be some really bad things. And she's like, okay. And so she tries not to look inside, but of course she does. Well, what's inside this box? It's all the things like disease, hunger, war, greed, sickness, just to name a few. So the Greeks came up with this theory that the reason why we have greed now and all of these, I think they're considered sins, right? Why we have some of these sins and why we have some of these world hunger and diseases is because this woman who was so curious opened a box. Why can't it be a guy? Just saying. So because he opened this box, or because she, opened this box, it started all these different things. And so that's where Pandora's story comes from, which is kind of wild when you think of it. And, you know, I'm sure if they were Greeks, still believed in Dallas mythology, I'm sure that's where COVID came from, was Pandora. That Pandora got curious again and opened the box, and there we have COVID. So yeah, I always thought that was interesting. I can't wait to hear. So leave me a comment below if you have a favorite mythology that you know. Maybe I don't know it. I read a lot of mythology. So make sure you let me know in the comments below. Have a great day, everybody.